Street Fighter EX was an iconic episode in the series, however because its development was led by a company called Arika, it meant some of the more memorable characters produced in the series were inaccessible. But since September of 2016, Street Fighter V have been releasing character bios that discuss some EX characters and even what they've been doing during the events of Street Fighter V, which leads me to wonder if there's a possibility of them ever returning. As Arika president Akira Nishitani didn't seem to rule out a future appearance of their characters, and even said guest appearances were a possibility. Therefore, I'll run through a list of top 10 characters from the EX series that I hope can make it to Street Fighter V. Alright, let's go. Alan Snider was the reigning United States karate champion at one point, before Ken Masters came and ruined everything. Prior to Alan's beatdown, Ken told him he was a small frog in a well, to which post-it fight, Alan took the idiom to motivate him to broaden his moveset, or more accurately copy most of Ken's techniques. Though he wasn't without original moves, and some of them included the torso-denting Justice Fist, the vaulting kick, and his super combo Triple Break, which helped separate him from other Shotos of the game. He therefore becomes a consideration due to the fact that Street Fighter V has been actively striving to minimize the similarities that have been present in certain characters over the series, and as a result, Alan would most probably go through quite the transformation if ever implemented. Blair Dame, like the previous entry Alan, were both absent from subsequent EX games post-EX, EX Plus and EX Plus Alpha, and would only re-emerge in the Namco and Arika made fighter called Fighting Layer, which was a game that had you pit against foes such as distant relatives of characters you might be familiar with, this man and the Bumblebee. Blair is your normal rich girl who's typically disgusted in the constant safeness of her usual surroundings, which comes with excessive amounts of the dough, and seeks to hurl herself into a more danger-prone environment, and we're better than entering a martial arts tournament, though such desires must come after being so learned in the style of shoot boxing, which is a form of boxing where you do everything but box. Her reasons for fighting are mainly to protect their loved ones, which one may say is a little lackluster, though we argue someone with such impressive tibias has surely earned their spot on this list. Pullum Purna is another rich woman of Saudi Arabian descent who had been walking a vengeful path against Shadowgeist, a move that was triggered when she found her grandfather in a trance-like state after reading a book with the criminal organization's name on the cover, which caused her to team up with Darun Mister in the hope of garnering redemption. Pullum is said to be currently searching for her father, who seems to be affiliated with Shadowgeist, and she once again sets off in the hope of finding him. Pullum fights using a dance-inspired fighting style and usually has quite a cheery disposition, though is described as being quite selfish, which is a fair assessment after making you perform such dangerous dance moves when you had something safer in mind. Though we hope she's available for one more dance with Hennessy in her. Actually, let's just move on. Upon the death of his girlfriend at the hand of Shadowgeist, Volcano Rossa set out to find and destroy all those responsible for her demise, to which the usual result of any who would challenge Shadowgeist is your ass promptly handed back to you. Although that's certainly not the case if you just happen to be named Ryu, Akuma, and Volcano Rossa, who in the Calendar EX story was able to break the trend by single-handedly blasting his way through the criminal organization and triumphing over the dictator upon their encounter. Rossa proves to be quite a dominant force and is therefore a character we hope to see again one day. The man now known as Doctrine Dark was once the leader of a recon unit that worked under Guile, who attained much success and was regarded as a hero. However, during a certain operation, his team came to blows with Rolento's revolutionary army, and after a subsequent battle, Rolento emerged victorious, with the recon unit leader the only sole survivor upon the encounter, who now found he couldn't breathe properly and was mentally traumatized, which made him lose his sanity and would eventually arise as the mad bomber known as Doctrine Dark. He can now be found roaming sewers armed with extendable knives, explosives, and the wire he uses to pull you in or just blast you sky high. If Arika characters do become viable one day, D-Dark most probably will be among one of the favourites to be implemented among the Capcom staff, as his likeness has been applied to characters on more than one occasion, suggesting he's nowhere near forgotten. Hokuto was secretly entrusted with the responsibility of disposing of her elder brother, who she'd not only never met, but actually didn't know existed. She now sets off on a journey to find her brother, not knowing that as soon as she meets him, a battle to the death will be triggered, against her own will. This is due to the fact that she bears a seal upon her forehead that will break at the sight of her brother, and in turn unleash his savage persona called Bloody Hokuto. Hokuto is definitely a favourite to return, though considering the roster of Street Fighter V will most probably in its lifetime reach the 30 to 40 mark. It's probable Bloody Hokuto will not be introduced as a separate character but rather as a transformation, or even the default version, as she possesses all the potential normal Hokuto possesses, not to mention the shortage of bad girls, minus the other dolls that is. Saburo Nishikoyama was an underperforming salesman at one point until opportunity struck for him to find favour with his superiors as part of a carnival for value clients in their store. He offered to put a skull outfit on and act like a superhero for the duration of the event. However, he found that he garnered an unprecedented amount of attention and admiration, more than he had ever had in his life, and thus he decided to clad himself in the costume and become a crime fighter named Skullomania. He's known for having quite an array of groovy moves, but his most iconic was the new Skullodroom, which had him heroically charge forward on the opponent, to which a roll of random fight scenes and non-fight scenes would ensue, and ended with Skullo flashing a more than decent pose. Skullomania is the absolute favourite of many players of the EX game and has been long hoped for as an addition to current Street Fighter titles. Kairi is a character long desired by myself since he left onto the scene in EX2, and it's true he's been available since the start of the EX series. It's in EX2 that he really went through quite the transformation, from the whitening of his hair, his new movements, and a plethora of scars now present across his chest, which help complement his usual tormented state. Kairi would possess much potential if ever introduced into Street Fighter V. For instance, it's likely the igniting of his palms, which was an exclusive event that occurred when his energy gauge maxed out, would be a good option for a V-trigger, and would either allow him to deal additional damage, as they did in previous games, or enable him to perform his beam attack for the duration of the V-trigger. All this and more possibilities if the tragic fighter would ever return. Garuda is described as being a walking collection of every soul that fell to a user of the Satsui no Hado over the ages. Because of this, Garuda finds himself impervious to all attacks inflicted from any who would utilize the dark power, and is actually said to fight harder against possessors. He's therefore the only character in the entire series who Akuma may not stand a chance against, and may be the reason he doesn't appear post EX plus Alpha. During the arcade modes across all EX games, Garuda would usually play the part of mid-boss, and in earlier games secret boss. Though with his deadly spikes, power set evocation and master swordsmanship, he was definitely worthy to be the boss above the boss, and with Akuma yet to make an appearance, the slot is wide open, though because of the uncertainty of Arika characters, I won't jump the gun but rather conclude that boss or not, his presence in the game would be more than ample for most fans. Introducing my all-time favourite and top pick to return, Shadowgeist, who first made his appearance in Street Fighter EX2 and can be thought of as a ruthless version of Skullomania, donning gear that allows him to wield some type of dark energy, appearing to possess magnetic properties. Also, as an almost anti-Skullo, he possessed a Skullo Dream variant called the Death Dream, which is his own twist on the move, and unlike Skullo's, can be done in the air, with this version testing the opponent's swordplay. Shadowgeist played the part of Dark Vigilante immensely, with his lack of mercy to any opposition, surpassing even Bison's, as he's the only character possibly in the whole Street Fighter series who seemingly vaporizes his opponents with his meteor combo called Death Energy, to which if he ended the game with the maneuver, the opponent would be nowhere to be seen, implying they were rendered to dust. But what gave birth to such barbarous behaviour? Well, he was actually a normal family man in the beginning, living under an oppressive government, when one day through unknown means he lost both his wife and daughter due to that same government, and subsequently he clad himself in a cybernetic suit and became the exquisite death machine that's nothing short of a masterpiece. We can now guess he wishes to crush the ones responsible for his family's demise, and will do nothing short but eliminate all who stand in his way. It would truly be a dark day indeed if he ever made it back to Street Fighter. I personally might feel a bit differently. But now to conclude. It's no secret Arika presented us with a fine array of characters of the EX legacy, and it's been a great shame that the company have seemingly locked them away from fans who still after almost 20 years are still asking the question of the possibility of their re-emergence in modern Street Fighter titles. So Arika, have a heart, and Capcom, get your wallet out, you cheap little... Ugh. Anyway, that's that. Thanks for watching my top 10 EX characters. Don't know what I'm doing next, but subscribe anyway. We'll find out together. And leave a comment if you're mad I left Crackerjack or someone else out, or just to say thanks, Move Legacies. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and see you later.